31, we ready to roll?
Webinar is being live streamed. We are ready.
All right, ready to roll. Okay. Welcome to the Berlin Select Board open meeting. Today is Monday, March 24th. The month just zooms by. As a reminder, open session meetings are subject to being recorded. Your image and voice will be captured forever and ever. Call to order at 6:31. We have NOAA minutes. We have NOAA minutes. So we will go to general public comment. Got nothing in the
Good.
back.
Good.
So, we actually had a schedule. I don't know where your person went, but if you. All right,
I think she's making copies of the document. for you
Okay.
guys.
well, then we'll skip down to discuss vote to appoint Kim Bratton as the election clerk for this upcoming May election. So Kristen, don't know if you want to give a little skinny on why Kim will be the election clerk?
My understanding is Tim will be stepping back.
Oh, no.
Oh, am I missing? I've got them mixed up.
Yes, so Tim will be stepping back only because he is aware of a potential conflict with his spouse running for select board. So Kim is going to be the election clerk as Jane Sawyer is stepping down.
Yes.
And Kim, in keeping things balanced, is a registered Republican in town. So,
Nice.
Mr. Hawkins, would you like to make a motion?
I think it's great that people are volunteering, and I move that we appoint Kim Bratton as election clerk.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate you stepping up. Is there anything for us to sign on that?
No, this is something we voted on last week to sign. I was just going to point out that the special application permit calls us the selectmen as opposed to the select board, and that we have a chairman and a vice chairman, and those should probably be fixed as well.
No. So, all right, so I will sign these. So we have our special guests, the Conservation Commission update on the forest stewardship. So if you could come on up, even though we know who you are and love and adore you, if you could introduce yourselves, then I will turn the floor over to the both of you.
All right. Maddie Vanderboom, Conservation Agent for the Town of Berlin.
Carolyn McDonald, Conservation Chair for the Town of Berlin.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. So how can we help you ladies tonight?
We have a contract from New England Forestry Consultants to do work up in Acre Woods or Ball Hill Conservation Area. So if you guys remember, 2 years ago, we had a forest stewardship plan developed for Ball Hill Road Conservation Area to essentially better manage that conservation land for bird habitat, with bird habitat in mind. And since then, we've also been doing running two projects, two bird related projects. So we do a monitoring avian productivity and survivorship program in the summer, in which we ban breeding birds on the property. And then we also do a northern saw-whet owl bird banding migration study in the fall at the property to kind of just get like a baseline for what's using Acre Woods currently, and preparation for the stewardship plan to be activated. So essentially what they're looking to do is they're looking to make some selective cutting throughout the woods to kind of mix up the age of the forest, because right now it's a very uniformly aged patch of woods. So they're hoping to make some, patch cuts to kind of bring in some, new saplings to growing in and whatnot to kind of vary the age. So essentially this is what this contract is here that Gary Goldfripp provided with us. So the idea is he would oversee kind of the cutting and whatnot. So he's trained for bird assessment with, background. He's a forester as well. So he would be overseeing the work. He expects that the harvest could generate around $15,000 to $20,000 in gross revenue, or approximately $500 per acre. So their services would be billed at an hourly rate with expenses, which, did I provide you guys a contract? Do you have copies of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And it kind of breaks it down. So foresters per hour is $85. Paint to mark out the trees is $22 per gallon, and mileage is 67 cents per mile. So those are the expenses. And I did ask him how this works. Do we have to like prepay these expenses or like how does that work? But apparently he doesn't get paid until the wood is sold off. So it comes out of the after the fact, the revenue that we make from the harvest.
So who's the wood sold to? Anybody, or does it go specifically somewhere?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he specifies who it's sold to, but
And it's all sorts of, so basically whatever wood's up there. if
yep,
it's-
pretty much.
So they
yep.
cut like pine, oak, maple.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they are selecting hardwoods.
Okay.
There's definitely a lot of standing dead oak up there from the gypsy moths. So that would, depending on the condition of that, whether it's still actually viable for sale. But we would probably take some of those down anyway.
Mhm.
And we're gonna open up the canopy. So if that means, part of selecting the trees is what trees do we want to leave to encourage what specific birds?
Seriously,
So
birds are attracted to certain trees.
Really?
Really?
Yep. Yep. And a lot of these forest species do rely on kind of these patches of, opened up areas. After they're done breeding, they move to these areas to kind of fuel up for migration. So it benefits. Yeah.
I'm
right.
gonna keep hanging around you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, just my knowledge just grows of this
Yeah.
stuff.
And the other thing that we're talking about doing is meadow habitat is the fastest diminishing habitat in the state. So we've talked with Gary about creating a meadow and keeping an open meadow up there. One of the things that we're aware that can happen when you do that is that invasives can take over. But Gary seemed pretty confident that if we choose the right place with the right soil conditions and amount of sunlight and everything,
Mhm.
that we can minimize that happening. So as to what kinds of trees are going, it kind of depends on where we decide to do that and
Mhm.
what trees are growing there and everything. So while the point, getting the money to pay for this project is great, and so you want to
Mhm.
have valuable trees, the point isn't to make money off of it. The point is to create this
Save the
habitat.
birds. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there was a gentleman that I know that kept coming to your meetings that wanted to cut some stuff back. Is this gonna impact him at all, or?
right. So he's actually in a butter,
Yeah.
and he has requested certain trees be cut down.
Oh, okay.
Because he would like to get more sunlight in his yard because he wants to put up some solar. So,
Win-win.
right, exactly. So, and he actually has expressed interest in kind of being a steward of this property also. So, working with him, he'll keep an eye on the invasives. We'll
Okay.
cut down the trees that are blocking the sun from being in his yard, and
Okay.
if it makes sense to cut those trees down. So
Do you have a time when this is gonna start?
So
Ish?
we
We
do
like
not.
ish.
So ideally it'd be something that happened in the fall. So kind of after breeding season happens for this year.
Okay,
And I think that's when they prefer to go into is usually fall,
right.
but I think we have to kind of
so
Get
kinda
on their
like after
list.
growing
Right.
season.
Actually, fall or winter, even when the ground is frozen, they do less damage with the machines when the ground is frozen.
Not true, because they're gonna
So-
have to bring in some pretty big things to.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then-
Right.
That's
So how are they gonna haul them out?
on a skidder.
Okay,
Yeah, so I just will tell you now, it'll probably be ugly for the first couple of years,
Mhm.
which is hard, but the other thing to remember about nature, just like with the fire,
takes care of itself.
right, rebirth happens after destruction,
Mhm.
so
Okay,
just try to keep that in mind when we look at the ugly
Mhm.
after the forestry.
so I know you have both been very concerned about the amount of like ATVs that show up on conservation properties. So if you're whacking down trees and kind of sort of making trails in there to drag the trees out, are you also concerned about four-wheelers being like, woohoo, we have a new path, watch this?
I think his plan is to try to use existing trails.
Okay,
Which are used by ATVs.
Which are
snowmobiles,
used by
but-
ATVs already.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we'll probably put up some fresh signs,
okay.
no motorized vehicles. And, unfortunately, there's not a lot more we can do about that.
Can you do anything to block the trail? Like, can you drop a tree? Not that I want to, but
Right.
if you're seeing an uptick, can you block something? Or do people just be like, ooh, I'll take 10 of my buddies and we'll just drag it away?
Well,
Yeah.
See all of the above.
Yeah.
Those blocks also make it harder for emergency vehicles. to
Right,
go.
well, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. We do, we can block some trails, but
It's a balance.
you need to be aware of the way you do it so that you're also not inhibiting emergency vehicles.
There's something needed to get in there. Okay.
And equine.
And equine.
Yep,
Right.
Mhm.
yep.
All right. I think this is very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
No. Well, I have questions, but questions have to do with like, how do I build a wild meadow on my property? Unrelated to this meeting.
Yeah,
Right,
another
right,
time.
right.
Well, I don't know. My street came up with CMRPC where they talked about all invasives going up my road. So I was gonna be
Yep.
like, hey, how do I first identify them? Cause I just think it's a pretty flower. So- All right, lots of opportunity.
I am fine to make the motion to support, sign the war order presented by the Conservation Commission to improve the forests.
I will second that. We've had lots of
Um,
discussion.
Is this
Yes.
something signed by select board or signed by you? Should we,
Select board.
select board, okay.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Boom, chakalaka. Thank you. Oh, I promised that I wouldn't say that, so apologies. But no, this is gonna be great stuff. And again, if this is stuff you want to showcase, write it up and put it in the items so people know what you're doing. I've done the bird banding with you and am giddy like a 4-year-old when I go home and tell people that I held
A
an
chickadee.
owl,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my hand and expected the big whoosh when they fly away and you get nothing. So,
They're this
Okay.
big.
but still you expect a little,
Yeah.
nothing.
But they're so silent, yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
awesome. All right,
Yeah.
well, I think we're good. So Scott sign this. I will
Yep.
sign below him. And we
we're good.
are
Awesome.
ready
Thank
to
you.
roll.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
so much.
Appreciate you
Yep.
coming in. Thank you. Let us know if you need anything else.
Will be.
All right.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
All right, Kristen, you're up, but do you kind of want to wait and just merge it with our old business where we'll talk about the override, debt exclusion, budget?
Yes, please.
All right, so first up on old business, last week Scott and I did vote against the override debt exclusion to be placed on the warrant or ballot, but you had provided us with additional information after that and suggested we just put it out here again tonight to talk about options. I mean, I know that the school committee is voting on the budget tomorrow, so
So the town clerk has stated that the select board would need to make a decision this evening. I don't believe that you have enough information to make that vote this evening, given the fact that the school is taking up the budget again tomorrow and there are ongoing discussions. There's a couple different things that you can do. And we can continue to have conversations, but really the one thing to keep in mind is the only way to do a capital exclusion, which was kind of an additional, it's like a debt exclusion, but it would be 1 year for capital items. There is a possibility of doing that in addition to a debt exclusion or an override. which debt exclusion is financed over several years through a borrowing, and an override is a permanent increase to the tax levy. The problem is a capital exclusion being 1 year financing would be a high, large hit to the taxpayers in 1 year. It would go away after that, however. But one thing to note, that if we do not have the contingency on the town meeting warrant for any of those overrides or exclusions, we would not be able to hold another town meeting to put an override or debt exclusion on, or capital exclusion. We would have to look at available funds. So it's very similar to what we talked about last week, except that you could hold a special town meeting afterwards. And some of the other options you would have would be stabilization. That does require a 2/3 vote to remove. You know, you would look at potential reductions to the town budget, excess levy. None of those are really, you know, ideal solutions either. I am hopeful, based on the conversations that we've had with the school last week, both at FinCom and the capital number, which was 323,000 that they put forth, that the 1.6 million number that was requested for capital will hopefully come down to something that we would be able to fund with our estimated 1.2 million in free cash. So understanding all of that, I really think that it would be a challenge to fund the entire capital amount this year. And I believe the school understands that from the discussions that we've had, without using, you know, all of our excess levy, additional funds, you know, like free cash and stabilization. I think that it makes the most sense to wait until the budget hearing tomorrow to hear what they come up with, because it's just not a viable or sound financial decision to try to put forward 1.6 million in capital funding in 1 year.
Right, I've not changed my mind. I see no need for an override or debt exclusion on either the warrant or ballot.
And I don't think that we have enough information. I mean, Aaron and Al heard the message last week at FinCom. You shared with them the impact to taxes. And, you know, showed the various, if you go up this percent, it's this, if you go up this percent. So they are well aware of that. I would hate to go back to our town clerk and say, yep, we're gonna put this on when maybe we don't need it. And it sounds like we have plan A through F for different options. I'm kind of with Scott. I don't think that we have enough information right now to go back and say yay or nay, and to put the override and debt exclusion on the warrant and the ballot. I mean, so they're meeting tomorrow. FinCom is meeting Wednesday, so they'll have a chance to look at the numbers. And then we're scheduled for next Monday as well. So we have one final look at it.
Yep.
So do you really think that a week is going to make a difference with
Well-
Eloise? I mean, are we within that window, or are we tied by Mass General Law to say?
I thought Mass General Law gave us to April 7th,
I did too, but she's saying with early voting
Yeah.
that it has to be today.
again, I thought we had a very productive meeting at FinCom across the school administration. There was a school board member there present even. I think we came to numbers which, even if we don't hit those targets, if we're close to those targets, our numbers we can do without needing an override or debt exclusion. And so I'm gonna remain hopeful that we can come to an agreement that doesn't require those, because again, if you hit your levy limit, we are raising taxes substantially in town. And so I can't see a scenario where we will need that full levy amount. And so I am fine holding on to our vote from last week, and I imagine this will be, and if we missed it and we have to do a June special election, a June town meeting to pull it off, then so be it.
Agreement. We just hold.
Mhm.
There just isn't enough
Yep.
solid information. School committee, again, I'm hoping, and I know that there were members that were on Zoom during the meeting. So they heard,
Mhm.
everyone has heard the message. And even though and I know that there's been activity online for parents to attend,
Yep.
the meeting tomorrow and, emergency situation, I just hope that it's not panic, danger, Will
Yeah.
Robinson emergency, that it's truly, this is
Yep.
where we are, this is where we can cut.
Well,
And here we
especially on the capital number from the presentation so long ago, they voted on the full 1.6 million. The
Correct.
school administration even did a report that said, here are ones that we want you to be aware of that we don't really need this year. And if you look at the items that were just the things we felt this year, that number was definitely pushing it pretty hard. And we'd like to see a little cut to that, but that would require either a debt exclusion or an override.
Mhm.
And so I still feel that we will, I still look forward to going to a town meeting with a budget that ultimately gets supported by the school board, the FinCom and select board.
Right,
That doesn't require either of these.
right, that is not detrimental to the residents of the town. All right, so,
Peg,
Uh,
just one more thing if I could.
you betcha.
Just that one nuance that I did want to make clear, because I did a lot of research to try to figure out, what we can and can't do. If the school budget does go forward, at
As
the
is.
1.6
Mhm.
as is currently passed, and it passes at town meeting, we can't go back to town meeting and make any part of it contingent upon an override or an exclusion,
Right.
because that appropriation has already been made, so that would have to come from existing funds.
Again, since of the 1.6 billion, over 1 million of it is in things the administration already says they don't need.
Yeah.
I have full faith that when they go to the school board meeting, they're not going to pass 1.6 million. And so I'm not making any contingencies for a $1.6 billion capital request because I can't imagine that is going to ultimately be what they vote on.
And I think that's completely understandable. I just wanted to make sure
Yep.
that nuance was out there.
Well, let us hope for good information tomorrow night from the school committee, that they've heard us, that they realize the impact, that they can take a look at their entire budget and hopefully come down a little bit, which leads us right into the discussion regarding the supplemental requests that we didn't even look at for that. My eyes were pretty opened last week when I looked at the numbers and I saw how much Berlin was cutting. I mean, you're talking
Mhm.
200 and something $1,000. Not only have we gone down to the bone, we have gone through the bone and we are peeking out the other side of it. And I don't want to continue to squeeze the town for requests that they're making to help employees or to do things a little bit better at the expense. So that is why I requested the supplemental to come back on. I mean, do I agree with everything on here? No. Is it a discussion I'm absolutely willing to have with Scott tonight? You betcha. If it's a, 1-to-1 vote, then it will go to FinCom and then ultimately to the town, registered voters to look at, but I think we owe it to the folks in this town that continually go above and beyond and do things to look at. And, instead of 200 and some odd thousand that we've cut out from the town, maybe we just cut out a little under 200,000 from the town. So,
Yeah, we've got 249, almost $250,000 at this point.
Yep.
I would have still cut more.
you want to cut more?
That's several things I proposed we didn't agree to.
I know. So are you open to looking at some of the supplemental requests to potentially put back in?
I'm open to listening to them. I can't
Okay.
imagine I'm going to support any of them.
Okay. Though I agree that everything on here is important, there's a couple areas that I want to focus in on, and that is for, the first one is highway, snow and ice, where they're requesting, oh God, peg math, 54-ish additional $100. For years, our highway has done incredible things with very limited resources, and finding people to replace them we know is hard. We have an opening for a facilitator person that is not allowing our current facilitator person to step up onto highway because there is no one that is qualified to take that role. I would very much like to put back on that funding for a step increase for 3 employees and also for snow and ice to do that as well.
I wouldn't make any changes to snow and ice. Snow and ice is the one line item we're allowed to deficit spend. And historically, in my first 9 years on FinCom, it's town meeting, we would take money out of free cash to just cover the overages. And so I wouldn't actually add anything to snow and ice. So I think we've done good. A lot of towns don't add anything to snow and ice and severely undercut it. And the town has been actually pretty close to zero on it, which is nice. But I see no reason to add to snow and ice right now.
Peg, the one concern that I have is this circumvents the personnel committee.
I know. I know.
Because, you know, I was asked to make cuts. And so when we went before personnel, I said that we were going to do a 2% cost of living, but I was not recommending any step increases at that time.
Yeah.
The supplemental funding request is not typically used for step increases because there's a process that goes through. And I'm just a little concerned about the fact that if I knew that this was going to be recommended, there would have been other employees I would have recommended as well.
I know, and it kind of looks like I'm picking and choosing and just looking at specific items. I'm just trying to find a way to continue to say, you know, yeah, we need to fight for the employees that we have, but you know, we can't circumnavigate the process. And if this should have gone to personnel, it should have gone to personnel, and perhaps fast forward this time next year, we can make sure that something like this does go, you know, depending upon where we are budget wise, if it's just a COLA or if it is COLA and a step.
Well, I think it's going to be more than that because we've recommended for town meeting $10,000 to have a personnel study to see how
Yeah,
salaries are coming up. And so I imagine there'll be positions around town
that we're gonna
that
have
we're
to.
doing salary adjustments, not steps. We're gonna say that this particular one, you know, based on what other towns are paying, we have to pay more.
More.
I can't imagine anyone gonna come back saying I'm gonna pay less, even though there's some people who on social media have pointed out that like they think there's, you know, people
We actually
getting.
had almost
Yeah.
7. The last time we did the survey that Kristen's asking for, there were 7 employees that were really much lower.
And the personnel committee person in the back of the room is pointing out that there were
Yes.
several positions last time we did this that we pointed out that we were way out of line for. And so it's going to cost money both to do this survey, but it's also the money will give us the evaluation to make sure we are paying appropriately and in ways that will keep these things filled. And so I imagine in next year's budget, there'll be something for that.
And I imagine for if some of the positions are very off, it will have to phase in those
Correct.
increases perhaps, depending on what our budgetary situation looks like next year. But I think that, you know, we do have that process in place.
So is it going to be the same for my next 2, which is the library assistant and to increase the hours for the youth services librarian, that it should have gone through personnel, or is this
No,
truly?
because I thought that one was a formally put in supplemental budget request.
Right, that wasn't a step increase,
Mhm.
that was adding a position and increasing hours. So that's a little bit different. And the position already exists for a
Mhm.
library assistant 3. There is a job description that is approved for it. Increasing youth service librarian hours, that is a already existing position with somebody in the position.
Mhm.
My understanding is the issue is that the library is open for 33 hours a week, so they need 66 hours of staffing to staff both floors.
Mhm.
And they are going to have to go back to closer to 20 without these positions because they can't keep both floors open.
Right, and so I wanted to be, because we use the word increase hours in a couple of different ways in the sentences, is that we're increasing the supplementary request is to increase the number of hours we pay people so that we can maintain the number of hours the library is currently open. And so
Correct.
even if we approve the supplemental request, we're not adding more hours to what the library is open. We're just
Correct.
preventing it from reducing the number of hours.
We're trying to keep a level service essentially.
Yep.
And I know, the library was kind enough, and this kind of blew my mind, that they had talked about total circulation. And from January to around to now, on a weekly basis, you have items that have been checked out, 854, 944, 1,966, 969, 1,902, and 863. They've got 119 programs attended by over 800 people. In FY '24, they had 55 programs attended by 600 people. So they are doing great things for our tiny town. I know that the youth services librarian, that she's starting to put back in a teen advisory board. So a teen-centered space, to help with a very safe space for folks to come and, talk to each other and work with. So I would love to find the $26,612 to be able to continue the wonderful services that the library provides for averaging 100 visitors per week that go to our library.
Well, they're currently doing that level of services with the staffing they have.
And right, and the problem is that when there's an appointment, someone's on vacation, that programs that they want to have they can't do, or the director who has to stop, from going to her meetings or different things needs to step in as well. So you're kind of impeding her from doing her true job, for that.
I mean, I continue to maintain that I think all employees in town are working hard and have things to do. Again, it goes back to what can we afford the town to keep doing? I mean, that building is an expensive building, to go on top of it. I mean, they're gonna, we have a recommendation at town meeting to take an old town article, and let them do a little bit more expansion to get a better plan of what can make that work. I'm clearly not going to vote in favor of adding more hours out there. I am not sure if I want to vote against it or just abstain to let it sort of pass. But again, we've had to cut a whole bunch of things back. Adding in is just not the direction I want to go this year.
And I agree, but where we've made over $250,000 in cuts and gone rather draconian on the
Right.
town, then
Because the school is adding, 2.5 million. Our cuts are only 10% of what the school is trying to add to the budget.
And I agree with that, and that's the part that truly bothers me, is that we are sacrificing the products and the services of the employees that we have that support this town and take care of people in the town for something that we have little to no control over.
Right, but supports the kids in the town and the education of the future leaders of this town.
Can I briefly discuss the other ones, just so we round out?
Absolutely, those were the two that I picked, but there are 1, 2, 4 other ones, 3.
The last one was the computer for historical, which we've taken care of because we got the state earmark for IT. So that's all set.
Yep.
The part-time town planner economic development coordinator was going to be a contracted position through CMRPC, which that's why that hasn't gone before the planning board, because it's not creating a new position, but rather doing some consulting, contractual hours through CMRPC. And the town clerk has requested a new position, which is an admin to the town clerk. That job description has been written. It's gone to personnel. It did receive a review. It would just require a final vote.
So that was kind of off the table, considering that we really can't ask for money for a position that doesn't truly exist.
Right,
On
I can
paper.
tell you, I'll be clear, of the supplemental requests that went in, the library, the one is the one that I am most torn about. Like the others, I am,
know.
but the library, because I think you do end up in a downward spiral, that if they end up cutting from 33 to 20 hours, I think it's the same spiral we sort of see at the transfer station. More people don't go because it's not open enough.
Right.
And so because then people don't go, you look at cutting more, and so you cut the hours and fewer people go. And so
Well, I know that they had put out a survey, just today. I saw
Yep.
it on,
I saw it as well.
the town and encourage people to take it where if they have to reduce their hours, what are the hours that people would look for, early in the morning, maybe before the little ones go down for a nap, or it's, lunchtime, and, do you keep it all open a little bit, maybe later at night, so when folks are coming home between 5 and 6, they've got an hour to scoop to the library compared to, it's closed, I can't get there. So I know that they're also looking at potential changes as well, to try and keep consistent with the needs of the town. To me, this is a no-brainer that we need to find that $26,000, which out of a budget of 17 million, they're asking for 26,000. I don't know what the percentage is. I'm sure it's like 0.000 something. But yeah, this is something that I strongly,
I mean,
feel.
this is how we get to these budgets, that all of these are only
I know.
10 or 5,000 here and there. I mean,
I
the
know,
$250,000 we cut, none of them were really that big of items, and
they're not.
so make a motion.
I make a motion that we put back in $26,612 to support an increase in hours for youth services librarian and library assistant 3.
I will second that motion.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those abstaining?
I will abstain. So it can go
Okay.
to the town.
Yep, it'll be up to the town. I'm sure FinCom,
Right. At
Yep.
the end of the day, all of this is up to
It's
the
up to the
town,
town.
because they can undo.
yep,
uh,
anything that we've
stuff.
done. I
Uh,
appreciate, Scott, I appreciate your honesty on that.
Mhm.
All right, so we are moving along to a chat about the annual town meeting warrant. I know we've been cleaning it up over the past couple weeks, taking out some items. So Kristen, how close are we to having the warrant ready to roll?
We are in pretty darn good shape. I did have a little bit more on the budget if you wanted that, on the TA report
Sure.
side of things. I just wanted to fill you in on what happened to Capital Thursday night. Capital did vote their capital plan. They voted to fund the first 2 projects, or recommend funding for the first 2 projects for each of the schools, that being replace the elevator controls for $192,000 at BMS, and replace or add cameras for $45,000 at BMS, for a total of $237,000. They also recommended the town portion of the first 2 items at Tohoto, which would be the middle school furniture and the auditorium projector and controller, for a total of $86,002, for a grand total for BBRSD of $323,002. I did notify the interim superintendent Thursday night of their recommendation. They also voted on town items for the capital plan. The recommendation there was to use ambulance receipts reserved to fund the ambulance A2 replacement, which is a solid 30 to 35 months out. There is $700,000 currently in ambulance receipts reserved that can fund that ambulance, and the appropriation was for $450,000. So that's actually working quite well. The other recommendations were public safety mitigation funds, a total of $208,774 for police and fire items. And that includes forestry gear replacement, a rescue tool replacement, a CPR assist device and turnout gear, the overhead door replacement, which they actually recommended that come out of public safety mitigation. I did speak with the town accountant, don't see a reason why that couldn't, because that is for the building of the fire station building rather. And they recommended doing all 3 doors at once because there's significant loss of heat that's causing electric bills to go through haywire. So they recommended replacing all 3 of the doors at this time. And then for police, a firearms upgrade replacement and some communications equipment replacement and upgrades. So that was a total of 208,774 for public safety mitigation, which does not hit the taxpayers. And then they recommended from free cash, $274,403 for town projects, which include the municipal building sidewalk repairs, an F-450 replacement with the plow for highway, and a mower vac system replacement for highway, as well as sidewalk, parking lot repairs, retaining wall repairs, and a door replacement at the library.
Oh, so they are gonna get their door? The big
That-
door?
That is, well, that is
It's
that is
on
what
the-
they're
it's-
recommending to
okay.
town meeting. Yep,
So the door.
that was
and
their
the-
number one
That
request.
was their number one request, yes.
So the door and the retaining wall?
There was some discussion about the door, the retaining wall, and the sidewalk and parking lot repairs.
Okay,
They did not recommend the asbestos study at this time or the seal coating of the highway garage.
And we're gonna do that as sort of a library gets X dollars for projects like this, so if one goes a little high and one goes a little low, it's not a town meeting warrant article that has to change it.
That is a good question. That's not the way that capital was set up to submit it. It was on a project by project
Right.
basis. I think we could look at fixing that in future years and making it a general appropriation for capital for departments.
Yeah, just especially when you have a bunch of smaller-ish projects that allows if one goes over by $5,000 and one is under by $5,000, that we don't have to go back
the
to
money
town
can
meeting.
shift.
We
Right.
don't have to go back to town meeting to change that. I also, to be clear, and I say this every time we talk about school capital projects, we only give them a number. The
Mhm.
school board decides what it's spent on. And so we're giving the equivalent of the first two projects on those two, but they could still decide to do different projects because all the town does is give them a dollar amount.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean,
So
it's interesting where you said that on the schools. Schools was 300 and change.
Yep.
323 and $2.
Wasn't that close to what we gave them last year?
Last,
Yeah.
yep.
it's-
Last
yeah.
year was less because we did not have as much in capital. I believe last year was one.
Yeah, the Tohoto was particularly light on capital last year.
Yeah. Okay.
hold
All right.
on. It was 181, 385 last year.
Yeah.
It looks like 297, 385 because of the 116,000 we added and then did the switcheroo at fall town meeting
Okay,
to take that out of public safety instead of free cash.
okay.
So kind of, I just wanted to give you a sort of overview for the public too of what does this all mean, right? So, we had 361,000 requests from the town, plus the 67,000 in supplemental funding requests. The select board made 169,000 in cuts. I had recommended just under 81,000. So the total town recommended cuts are just under $250,000. That brings the increase for the town down to, sorry, I lost
About
my,
100 and
about 111.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the town represents, I did this math out, 44% of the budget. Assabet is 5% of the budget and Berlin-Boylston is 51% of the budget. So the Assabet increase is the same as we've been saying, the 163,965. And I did out some math here in terms of tax impacts, and it, as we all know, is very difficult to estimate. And I actually had a wonderful conversation with a resident who was talking about budget overall increase does not necessarily correlate to tax bill increase. And he was completely correct. The one thing that actually seems to be the most accurate, we went through about 5 different ways of trying to calculate this. It, believe it or not, is looking at the residential levy as a percentage of the total and using the current year's tax rate and current year shift has actually been a fairly accurate indicator of previous years. Not completely, because you can be off by $100 or so. But I will give you those numbers with the caveat that we don't know the commercial devaluation. We do have another pending abatement for the Solomon Pond Mall. But in FY25, the average single-family home valued at $660,000 saw a tax bill of $9,363. The Finance Committee recommended a 3.5% tax increase plus new growth. If that is the case, that would represent about a $450 increase on the average single-family home tax bill, give or take, could be $100 or so. If we fully fund the Berlin-Boylston operating budget, which the FinCom did make a motion to ask the district to cut $207,000 from their operating budget last week. But if we were to fully fund it, that would be about $581 in terms of the increase, give or take. And the, let's see. That's that. If we, well, the one other thing I wanted to point out was if we did make a decision to look at excess levy, the way that this is budgeted out right now, that leaves, hold on. That leaves approximately $870,302 in excess levy with, if you add in the new funds that you just put in for the library. So using that rest of that excess levy would add approximately another $525 on top of either the $449 or the $581. So just another reminder that excess levy is not cash sitting around. It actually does hit the taxpayer. It is just capacity to tax. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know there was a lot of discussion last year about, oh, well, there's excess levy, but that doesn't actually mean money that's available.
I tend to tell people that excess levy is the amount of money we're allowed to take from taxpayers
Yes.
Yeah.
before we have to go back for another vote. And so
Yep.
that is just, it is not money we have taken, it's money we can legally take.
It's kind of like
Yep.
free cash. It's not free, nor is it cash, it's just another funding source. So just to review, because it's in Scott, you made this point last week when we were all in FinCom with this calculation, and if this happens, then this happens, and there's some, assumption of blah, blah, blah. You can skin the cat 95 different ways. But at the end, people in town want to know how much their tax bill could potentially go up so that they can start looking at their budgets and figure out where the money is coming from. So you, Kristen, you said, just to reiterate, if your house is valued currently around $660,000, your tax bill, and I rounded peg math, is about $9,300
In the current year.
in the current
Current
year.
year.
All right, so you have 9,300. Okay, so we'll put that, again, I wish we had a big white thing on there so I could draw on it. If
I
FinCom,
can share my screen.
yeah, FinCom, and again, Scott and I were there, requested an increase for BBRSD. That if we look at adding 3.5%, that's another additional $450 to a potential tax bill currently valued at $660,000. So we're looking 5.7. So right there, you're looking at $9,750. If-
And again, that's assuming no change in the ratio between residential, commercial, and no change in
Correct.
commercial property values.
Correct.
Correct.
So if you do Plan B, which is to fully fund BBRSD, you're
Operation.
looking at, and again, assuming no other changes, is that 581 on top of the 9,000 or 581 on top of the 450 on top of the 93?
So if it's the 3.5% that the FinCom recommended, that is approximately a $450 increase, give or take $150 either way. If we fully fund the operating
Yep,
for Berlin-Boylston, that is a $581 increase, give or take either way.
okay, so that,
Over current year, not on top.
Over
of the
current
four-
year, not on top of the 449, correct?
all right, so that's approximately 9,800.
Yeah.
And 81.
Yep.
And then if we use the excess levy capacity,
If we use the rest of our excess levy, now that just went down by the
27,000.
27,000 we allocated to the library. So this is a rounding estimate here.
Yep.
I had 555
Yep.
But I'm gonna say like 525. I mean, I can throw it in the calculator in a minute,
No,
but
no, that's fine.
that 525, say, dollars would be on top of either the 449 or the 581.
Ooh, so, all right, so let's
Which
go.
is again, why we're just not.
Yep. So if you did that math, you take and again, all things being current, no changes, no adjustments of approximately $9,300 in current real estate taxes, plus a 3.5% increase of around $450 plus excess levy, which is around $525. You're looking at a bill over $10,100 for a home that is
Yeah,
roughly valued at $660,000.
true, but there are not, I don't believe there are credible requests to go to the levy limit. That the capital number of 1.6 million the schools have done, the administration openly says in their documentation, every document that come out for the last several months has gray line items in it saying these are things to let us know about that are definitely potential needs. We'll have to fund them at some point. And because of the various rules related around budgeting, that once the school board passes an initial budget, they're not allowed to go up. And so they passed that whole thing. I would be floored if tomorrow they pass a $1.6 million capital budget. It would be opposite everything that I've heard from members of the school board, everything opposite what I've heard from the school administration. It would not be in the tone that was in the last meeting we had.
Right.
And so even if we've fully funded the non-grade out items in their capital and we fully funded their operational, we are not touching the entire levy limit.
If we fully funded capital?
The credible capital
Oh, I'm sorry.
requests.
Yes,
If we
yes.
fully fund the credible capital requests and fully fund the operational, I think it will hurt. I think our numbers would be a little bit higher than the 500. Hopefully we come to numbers lower than that,
Right.
but we're not hitting the levy limit. And so those, what happens if we spent the entire levy limit is not a number that needs to be bantied about much.
I think and the only reason I do mention it is just because that is the vote that currently has been taken.
Right.
Right. All right. No, again, and I know things could change and hopefully we'll hear good news tomorrow that it will come down. But I just want, again, the people here, there, and watching on playback to know the potential impact to their tax bills so that come May?
Yeah.
April, next year. That when they come out, that there is no sticker shock like there seemed to be this year when the bills went out in January and people didn't understand or couldn't remember why their tax bills had increased so much. So this, again, FYI, it's just preliminary. We're talking, numbers that
Yeah.
may change, but again,
400 to 600, I think, is the range we're
Yep.
generally looking at.
that's at the end of the day, I as a taxpayer
Yep.
person need to say, oh, if it's going up 600 divided by 12, I need to find X dollars per month to put away. So that's all. Okay. Well, we will wait and see what the school comes back with tomorrow and hopefully residents from Berlin and or Boylston will be there in person, because if you zoom in through YouTube, you can't speak, you can just watch. Okay. Well, I think that horse has been beaten enough for now. We will wait and see. Any other, Scott, comments, questions? All right.
One more item, you had not taken a vote on the cultural council at your last meeting, and so there's two line items you haven't voted on, the Berlin-Boylston final number and the cultural council. Those numbers that are in there, I did just make an assumption, but
Yep.
you need a formal vote.
It eats at me.
I know it does.
Mostly because the culture commission, again, the money was put in our budget because a year that we thought we were going to lose the state grant. And so instead of making them all go away, we would continue sort of doing the grant in place, and the grant didn't go away. I just, I don't understand the need for the $1,500 from the town.
Are you going to make a motion to keep the 1,500 or do you want me to make the motion?
I might be able to have someone who can help you. if you'd like.
I turned around and I
Well,
looked,
and-
but
And again, I'm not talking about disbanding the
Mm-mm.
commission. I was on FinCom when this happened.
okay.
To make your motion.
All right, then I recommend that we keep line 88 on the budget for cultural council expenses for $1,500.
I will second that motion.
All right, all those in favor? I will say aye. All
I-
those abstaining?
And I will abstain.
Okay.
So that motion passes.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
And then the next one, Kristen, you said was,
Schools, which
the
we
schools,
can't,
which we need to wait on.
We need to wait for them on.
we'll
So
wait,
now you
Um,
have voted on everything else. I'm
Yep.
just double
except
checking.
line 96.
Yep.
Okay,
That is correct.
On the warrant articles. I did only on Sunday, so I don't know if but put in the wording for the turning 3 positions into appointed instead of elected.
I did not have a
I
chance to
I
update
got
that
stuck at trying to make them all the same and realized that my rationale for the 3 of them are actually a little bit different. And so they ended up, I did try to quote Mass General Law, which is good. But I also then in my email to you folks, I linked where it is on the state website. So if I didn't properly cite Mass General Law, that you could fix that
Yeah,
citation.
absolutely. And things have been trickling in over
Yep.
the weekend, so I didn't get a chance to update everything that came in. But we are still at the 25 articles. They should be arranged in proper order at this time.
Yeah.
And just waiting for a few more descriptions, which I should have this week, and then I'll be sending it over to town council for their review.
And so our one vote remaining then is still how many yards of soil can come in?
oh, on the Lake Kind soil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did reach back out to Board of Health and Planning Board, but I haven't heard anything back yet.
You put a number, a random number generator, and just,
Oh, you know what, though? I did hear from Weston and Sampson today.
Oh.
They are going to be able to give me feedback. I believe they said this week.
okay, good.
Let me just double check.
Because we have to vote on a final number next week.
Correct, next Monday. So, one way or another, I will be able to get you a recommendation, whether it's from, let's see. Hold on, did you send this over to me?
And this needs to go to the printer by,
My recommendation is that we send it to the printer on April 3rd, which is a Thursday. So is that right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Even to me, that's cutting it close just because
Close.
you want people to be able to digest especially the bylaw changes, which are very nuanced and long. I'd love to get that out to people.
I should have the comments, from Weston and Sampson tomorrow.
I know, but unfortunately, we don't meet until the 31st unless you want to
Oh.
do a quickie speedy meeting.
31st is fine too.
Do it on the
About-
31st.
yeah.
Alright.
That still gets us by the second because we're changing a number. I don't think we're doing a wholesale rewriting of it.
No.
And there's a space in it right now for that number.
Okay.
I would agree.
All right, then we should be in pretty good shape. And then again, Scott and I will go through the process of divvying if we go one night and if we go 2 nights.
And there's
I-
no divvying.
There is no divvying. I leave that in the wonderful hands of Mr. Hawkins. Be good to go,
I did reserve the gym for a second night, just in case.
just in case.
I think we should always reserve for a
Yep.
second night because you just never know when something's going to take a lot of time and what's not.
Correct. And hopefully we'll be able to get through this. All right, so we will put the town meeting warrant discussion back on for next Monday. All right, new business. So all along, since we've had this, we've always named it Coffee Talk. And sometimes it's been really well attended and other times we end up just talking to each other.
Mhm.
So credit to Dee, suggested about a name change just to get it out there so that people truly know what we're talking about. And even though we sit here and we say we're going to have a coffee talk in April, blah, 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 it just gets lost.
Yep.
So recommendation is to, some stalling till it
Right.
can get there
That's
quick
okay.
enough.
I also don't think we can meet on that day. Isn't that Patriots Day?
well, we're gonna cancel our meeting.
Right, but we can't hold meetings on Patriots Day because it's a state holiday.
17th?
That is a state holiday.
The 17th is one? Is a state holiday?
Patriots
Yeah, it's
Day.
Patriots Day.
Is
it's a
it?
state
Marathon
holiday, yeah.
Monday.
All right,
I was thinking it was a Thursday.
I
for
thought we
some
were
reason.
meeting on a Thursday, yes. We tend to meet that week because we don't meet on Monday because of the state holiday.
Ah.
So we tend to meet on Thursday, which would be the 20th.
This,
no, April 20th is a Sunday.
oh, wait a minute, April 17th is
It's
a
a Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, so we just need to change the day Monday to
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say, I thought we were on a Thursday, so
I was all confused. All right, so,
April
April
14th is Marathon Monday in case.
and we have
Patriots
no,
Day, in
meeting,
case
right,
anyone's
and we
wondering.
have no meeting, which is the 14th.
Right.
Correct.
So Thursday, the 17th at 6:30. I like the name.
Yes. So for those patiently waiting, well, Peg finds it, it is called,
Town Meeting Information Session
thank you, Scott.
on Thursday, April 17th at 6:30 PM. We'll host it in this meeting room. We are hoping to do it hybrid as long as the state government allows us to do hybrid meetings.
Fingers crossed.
And I would just, we sometimes when we do this, it ends up being very much you, Kristen, talking about all the warrant articles. You tend to be close. I would love to figure out a way to divide it so there's
Yes.
just different voices at different times.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I also would find some, and we can talk about it in the next meeting or two, like some of these are, this is a normal article, this is not much, and we spend 2 seconds and we don't even read it as much
Correct.
as.
Yep.
This is cable spending. It's called PEG. We'll talk about it
It's
more
not,
later.
it's not
That's
mine,
not what we're
but
talking
yeah.
about tonight. Because I'd love to be able to spend more time on budget stuff, capital items, and the 3 bylaw changes.
Yeah, if you could let me know what you're thinking. I'm used to just doing the warrant myself, just
Yep.
out of habit, but I'm happy to bring in other people and we can invite them. Just
Yep.
let us know who you'd like to
Yep.
bring.
Well, why don't we put that on the agenda for next Monday? Because hopefully we'll be,
And I'll think about it more too.
and I'll think about it and, you know, at the same time, Scott, you and I can go through the warrant and if we both want one, rock, paper, scissors, you know, whoever wants it more can
Right.
have it. And then Kristen, that takes it off your plate as well. And yeah, make sure that planning, if we could invite somebody from
Yeah.
planning, if we can invite Mr. Wheeler from CPA to talk about his and whoever else is on the warrant to come on along. Awesome. So Dee, once that is updated, if you want to push it, and then we'll continue to push it out there, put it around town, general store, library, 19 Carter. Ah!
Apparently we want new kitchen cabinets.
Yes, apparently there is new kitchen cabinets. That's all right. Your
Right.
system's being
The thing is, though, Grace, she has no microphone over there, so only us heard that. If she not made
Oh.
the commentary, it would have just.
oh,
slid
just
over.
would have gone
Oh.
by. All right.
Apologies.
So we are now down, we keep chugging along, to review and vote on an update town administrator evaluation policy. And the reason why it's on here is that as we were looking at doing the evaluation for Kristen, we realized that our current policy was in conflict with a recent SJC ruling about how the information is gathered and to whom it needs to go to and how it is done in an open session compared to an executive session. So wanted just to take some time to look at the evaluation policy to see what we needed to change, to potentially look at the evaluation form. I don't know if that would need to go to personnel. I'm pointing to the personnel person in the back, if that needs to be done or if that's a board thing. And we need to, you know, discuss and vote on our non-board designee, who would be the person who would gather all the input for the TA evaluation and put them all together for us to read.
So that would go to legal counsel just to make sure it's aligned with the TA bylaw and
Yep.
aligned with any federal, MGLs that need to
Mhm.
be there. And I did send it off. I should
Okay.
have something back this week
All right,
from them. But you can certainly discuss and vote the non-board designee.
I thought the overall policy looked fine, waiting for legal. I didn't see anything wrong with it at all. And I think D makes the right, at least this
Logical
year,
vote,
the
yeah.
logical non-board designee. Um,
Okay. Dee, do you have any feedback since we're gonna, and I'm gonna make you come to the mic if you have any, feedback on how that would impact your workload or things behind it? I'm sure you've done it in the past with your other roles, once a year,
Once.
Yeah.
every 3 years.
Probably.
Okay,
well,
Val's every.
every year,
no, we evaluate the town administrator.
the evaluation,
We evaluate once a
Yeah.
year, but
once a year.
I would hope the town administrator who helps
right.
control your workload would make sure there's enough time to do this appropriately, so.
Okay. All right, so Kristen, let us know, so I'll drag these down to next week as
Yep.
well, maybe. And
I have no problem making the motion that we designate D as the non-board designee.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Dee. All right. So that brings us down to the end of our meeting for board questions and liaison updates. You got any there, Mr. Scott?
Nope, I'm good for today.
And I missed Concom because I was across the hall in FinCom. Apologies. You had my rec one, and apologies to Energy that I keep forgetting about. So I will do better for them. So I think we're good. Are we
Yep.
good? All right, I will
Motion to adjourn.
entertain, all right, I will second it. All in favor?
Aye.